Military members and veterans. What a military-grade item is actually great instead of a barely good enough to meet spec. The Gore-Tex rain gear we were issued in the Air Force was amazing. I don't need it much anymore, but I still have 2 to 3 sets floating around in storage somewhere. I stood in heavy, driving rain for over 30 minutes marshalling aircraft, and when I went inside, all my clothes underneath were still dry. Retains heat like crazy. 2. If the day wasn't bitter cold, I'd end up sweating after just a few minutes of moving around. Odds are you can probably find a set if you scour enough surplus stores. Especially the older, retired ABU pattern. Active duty husband says the C-130 is worth the money if you are in the market. Food preservation. MREs are wild. Depends what branch, but some of the cold weather gear is actually pretty solid, especially the layer system they use now. My dad was Army and swears by those fleece jackets even years later. Still wears his roundhouse all the time, and it holds up way better than civilian stuff I've bought. M65 field jacket. P38 can opener. Cushion sole antimicrobial wool socks. Poncho liner. Australian Army, cups canteen stainless, a kidney-shaped cup that fits on the bottom of the standard 1L water canteen. Couldn't tell you how many drinks and meals I had out of one of those in the 40 years since mine was issued. Former UK Coast Guard, although we consider ourselves more as first responders than military, particularly coastal ops. A lot of what we wear issued left a ton to be desired. The dry suits and ancillaries were top-notch. The layering system was designed in such a way you could wear them during a 6-hour exercise at 0°C, or a 20°C without much discomfort. Canadian balaclava system. If you need all the layers, it's worse than -40. I use just the base layer. Not a veteran, but a vet taught me about this. Canvas tents. So much better than even the best of the cheap crap polyester ones. Rainproof. Snowproof. Insulates way better against heat and cold if set up properly. Most of them have ports for stoves for cooking heating. The only real problems are that they're expensive, usually only come in 3-person sizes, though I've seen smaller, and maintaining the canvas can be a pain in the ass sometimes. Polypropylene cold weather Arctic gear. Anything Gore-Tex. 3-piece sleeping bag. If you stripped down to your skivs and zipped it up, and put a pad on the ground, you'd stay toasty in freezing temps. Only downside was it's small as hell, hard to get dressed inside it without opening. I still have 2 Gore-Tex jackets and liners that are over 20 years old. ODG duffel bags, metal AR mags beat to shit, lived through every war theater on the planet and kept on truckin'. Lots of stuff. The only item worth the money is the whoopee. IYKYK. Never in the military, but associated through my job. Flies watters. Everybody has cheap wire flies watters that bend easily. Mil-spec flies watters use a heavier gauge wire and are more like weapons. The green memo notepads in every imaginable size. Loved those things. Not a veteran, but by all accounts, the WW2 Willys Jeep really transformed the idea of a military vehicle to the world. At a time when civilian cars regularly overheated on the shallowest hill on a perfectly smooth asphalt road, Jeeps could crawl along on a rock path climbing thousands of feet at a time and never overheat. Never. It could jump 10 feet in the air and land on its wheels without even bending the frame, let alone breaking a spring. It could go 65 miles per hour indefinitely on off-road tires, fully loaded, as long as there was fuel in the tank. The engine could endure really long time slots of miles between oil changes, useful on a battlefield when you can't really schedule your maintenance without sludging. They were doing this in the 1940s. It took many civilian automakers until the 1990s to make something that reliable. Today, you can see some barely restored authentic military Jeeps still tackling the Moab Trail 80 years later. My parents met in the USAF in Fairbanks, AK. My dad was also stationed in Germany, setting up a hospital for the wounded during Desert Shield storm. He found a Parker in a closet there. I'm not sure if it was my mom's or the one from the closet in Germany, but I wore THST Parker on really cold days in high school. It was one of the solid grab green with wool-lined hood. That thing was so heavy it would make my trap sore for the first few days of wearing it. 1. Thorough Wubby. 2. Field Jacket Liner. Green books. Hardbound. Cover feels like it could stop a small arms round. Back in the day we had a whole shelf of them as a continuing timeline of turnover logs. My father was RCMP in Canada. Did his training back in the 1960s. He managed to keep several of his heavy winter jackets after he retired. They are old, so the new gear doesn't resemble them at all. He gave me one for when I was working in northern Canada. It's over 50 years old and it easily beats anything else I've ever tried to beat the cold. British Rat Pack steamed fruit pudding in a tin. A solid tube of tasty fats, carbs, and fruit. My God, I swear it had enough calories for a week in that can. And it had enough stodge to ramrod your colon clean in about 4 hours. A post-fruit pudding shit was a transcendental experience. I never found anything vaguely similar in a shop. Don't forget, they're barely good enough to meet spec. It may mean hitting a very tough spec. German cheater AA tanks. Doing what they were built for 50 years later in Ukraine. Did my army service 30 years ago in Germany with it. Field jacket liner and the poncho liner aka the Wubby. Obviously our gas masks work pretty well. When I got out we were using the MCU 2P. Certainly kept the CS gas out in boot camp. The 240B, and the Charlie and the Gulf and the Lemur. The Javelin. The later M2 Bradley variants. FBCB2 and BFT. The newer laser sights and the ENVGB, MBITRs etc. have been a massive improvement. I bought at a surplus auction a lot of 5 Arctic Goose Down sleeping bags, military issue. By far the most comfortable and warm bag I've ever had. Weighed a couple of pounds. Still have them. Excellent. Oakley iPro was ahead of its time. Far from a vet but was given one by one and he swears by it and the market for them is pretty high. Australian Freds. Field ration eating device. It is a spoon bottle can opener that used to be issued to Aussie soldiers. It might still be, but it used to be for sure. It is the best can opener I have ever used and many people connected to soldiers swear by them. Usually one of the first things cleared out at flea markets and whatnots. Navy foul weather jackets are easily one of the best cold weather work jackets you can get your hands on. Army-issued brown towel is the most waterproof material known to man.